It's from Judges chapter 4, verse 4. After Ehud's death, the Israelites again did evil in the Lord's sight. So the Lord turned them over to King Jabin of Hazor, a Canaanite king. The commander of his army was Sisera, who lived in Harosheth Hagoyim. Sisera, who had 900 iron chariots, ruthlessly oppressed the Israelites for 20 years. Then the people of Israel cried out to the Lord for help. Deborah, the wife of Lapidoth, was a prophet who was judging Israel at this time. She would sit under the palm of Deborah, between Ramah and Bethel, in the hill country of Ephraim, and the Israelites would go to her for judgment. One day she sent for Barak, son of Abinoam, who lived in Kadesh in the land of Naphtali. She said to him, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, commands you. Call out 10,000 warriors from the tribes of Naphtali and Zebulun at Mount Tabor, and I will call out Sisera, commander of Jabin's army, along with his chariots and warriors, to the Kishon River. There I will give you victory over him." Barak told her, "I will go, but only if you go with me." "Very well," she replied, "I will go with you, but you will receive no honour in this venture, for the Lord's victory over Sisera will be at the hands of a woman." So Deborah went with Barak to Kadesh. At Kadesh, Barak called together the tribes of Zebulun and Naphtali, and 10,000 warriors went up with him. Deborah also went with him. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. There was quite a few difficult words there. You did very well. Thank you. Now you know why I wasn't going to read it myself. So we're stopping there at that point in the story, and you can then go home and read and see what happens at the end. And they did actually win the battle, and the honour did go to a woman. And they wrote a song of praise, giving thanks to God for that victory. This morning, however, I want us to look at Deborah and Barak in the passage we read together. And I have a couple of people who are going to help me with this.
You've got a friend in me. You've got a friend in me. When the road looks rough ahead and you're miles and miles from your nice warm bed, you just remember what your old past said. Boy, you got a friend in me. Yeah, you got a friend in me.
That was a great song, wasn't it?
Yeah, you have always got a friend in me.
Oh, right back at you, Tyrone.
We have known each other for a long time now, and we always enjoy a good laugh and a joke.
Yeah, we like a good laugh.
So, how are you, Tim?
Well, I'm fine, thank you.
So, you're feeling adequate and needing encouragement?
Eh? What do you mean?
That's what fine means. Feeling, F, inadequate, I, needing, N, and encouragement. Fine.
Oh, okay.
So, how are you, really?
Oh, well, Tyrone?
Well, we do know each other quite well. Do you want to talk about it?
Well, yes, that would be good. Have you got time?
For you, pal, anything.
Oh, thank you, Tyrone.
Well, you don't say. You don't say. You don't say.
I didn't see!
Well, enough hilarity. What's up, pal?
Well,
Okay. Thanks for trusting and sharing this with me. It's okay. We all have issues. None of us are perfect, and we all struggle with stuff. We all struggle with things. But what's God saying to you about it?
well, you know, last week, well, I know, and the week before, well, I know that God fights my battles for me. And I heard Karen a few weeks ago, and she was on about Moses crossing the Red Sea, and my Red Sea seems so big. And last week, Hannah was talking about the wall of Jericho. I have a wall that seems so big too, and I told you, I am struggling to apply what they both said. I know all God's promises are yes and amen in Jesus, but I'm still struggling, Tyrone. I need your help, please.
Okay, pal. That reminds me about the story in Judges.
A story. And Samson.
No.
Gideon.
No.
Oh. Who?
Deborah. Deborah.
Deborah? Who is she?
Well, she was a prophet and the leader of Israel for 40 years. She was responsible for bringing the people of Israel back to God. There was a guy called Barak.
Oh, wait. Was he a goodie or a baddie?
He was a goodie. He was a goodie. He was a goodie.
Goody. I love good stories.
He was a goodie. Yeah, he was a goodie. So Deborah had a word from God for Barak. God wanted Barak to go with 10,000 men to deal with a guy called Sisera. He was a baddie.
Oh.
That was Israel's Red Sea at the time.
Oh, so that sounds like a biddy for Barak.
Well, yes, it was. And even though Barak knew that God was on their side, he still struggled. Like we struggle sometimes, and he asked Deborah to go with him.
Wait, did she go?
Yes, she went.
Oh, cool.
Barak knew that he had to do what God was telling him. He knew Deborah's faith and trust in God's word was strong, and her support helped him and his faith. So what I am saying is that you have asked me to help you, and I want to be like Deborah
Oh, I like the
and
sound
support you.
I like the sound of Deborah. Would you? I mean, would you? It would mean a lot to me, knowing that you are prayerfully supporting me.
Well, let's take action right now. Let's pray. And we can meet up and pray together regularly. It's okay to struggle with stuff. I struggle too, and maybe you could pray for me. And we can support each other.
Yeah! Let's pray together and bring Jesus into this situation, because he is our best friend. Hey, Tyrone.
Yeah. Let's do that now, buddy. Come on.
Okay.
There we go. Thank you, boys. Oh dear. Thank you for your help. So, this morning there's a few things I want to focus on. Just two. Shocker, I know. It should be three, but it's only two. Therefore, I'll be shorter. That's a good thing. And Maria's got some colouring in that she's going to give to some of the children to keep them happy just while I'm talking for a few moments. So, what do we know? We know that Deborah was a woman. She was a wife. She was a prophet. She was the leader of Israel, and she was a judge. There we are. Amazing. She was a busy woman. Fair to say? I think she was possibly busier than me. And although there's only 2 chapters that talk about Deborah in Judges, we can learn quite a lot from her. Deborah acknowledged that her strength came from the Lord. She had tremendous faith in God. She relied on God for wisdom and for her leadership ability. She used this to serve God and the people of Israel. Deborah's courage and her faith was contagious, and Barak was able to fulfill what God asked him to do because of Deborah's support. Her courage and her faith became encouragement and help to build Barak's faith. Now, with the recent Me Too campaign and the whole gender equality agenda that's going on, sometimes we can feel almost frightened to say the wrong thing in case we say the wrong thing. Fair? And I don't want to labour the gender issue. I just want to highlight that here in the book of Judges, we have an example of God using a woman. She was a prophet and she was a judge. And my understanding is that the only other person who was a prophet and a judge in Israel was Samuel. First there was Deborah, and then there was Samuel. Women are important to God, just as important as men. And he uses both men and women in lots of different roles and gives gifts to both men and to women. It's not about one gender being better than the other. It's about all of us being who God has called us to be and stepping into that. So this morning we had Tim and his good friend Tyrone helping him to bring out a wee point in the story of Deborah. And I would like us to all focus on that this morning. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Tough, if not. Tim made a valid point, didn't he? We heard a couple of weeks ago about Moses and the Israelites facing the Red Sea. And we were challenged to keep taking steps of faith as we face our own Red Sea. And last week, Chris and Anna encouraged us with the story of the wall of Jericho. And you remember you all built a wall and wrote on the bricks different things that prevent us. Didn't you? And you had your wall there, didn't you? And then you had lots of balls and you wrote on the balls different promises from God. And then the wall got knocked down. We've learned lots together just in the space of the last 2 weeks. We have so many promises from God, don't we? He will never leave us. He fights for us. 100 balls had promises written on them last week, and there are so many more that could have been filled. So why is it that we still find things difficult? Don't know that I've got the answer for that, but anyway, we'll see how we go. Tim whispered a problem to Tyrone, didn't he? Now, we could all have a good go at guessing what Tim's problem was. And I think that some of our guesses might reflect how things are going for us and what some of our challenges could be. It could be, is it that reoccurring sin? I keep doubting. I can't stop smoking. I can't stop swearing. I have trouble focusing during prayer. My time management is all to pot, and I can't get quality time with God. I can't shake my addiction. I'm frightened at what people might say to me when I tell them about Jesus. I keep having bad thoughts. I could go on and on, all things that could have been written on those bricks last week. The good thing here is that Tim recognised that there was something that he needed help with. And if you recognise it, then that's a great start, isn't it? Deborah had a word from God for Barak. It was a command, really, wasn't it? He had to do something. He had to gather 10,000 men to fight King Jabin's army, which was under the command of Sisera. We don't know how big his army was. We do know that it was a mighty army, and that it included 900 iron chariots, and the army had made the life of the Israelites unbearable for 20 years. So I'm guessing here that it was kind of a big, strong army. Is that a fair assumption?
Yes.
Yeah? And I'm guessing that it was going to be much larger than the 10,000 volunteers that Barak managed to get. Because I'm thinking that some of these 10,000 men maybe had never held a sword before. They were possibly looking after the sheep or something. These are my assumptions this morning. But I reckon he would have been kind of scared. Would you have been scared? God asked you to do that?
Yes.
I would have been very scared. And so for Barak to say, I will go, but only if you go with me. This reminds me of my two eldest lads, Fraser and Ross. Sorry, Ross, I forgot to ask your permission. Is that okay? Is it all right, Fraser? There was just 16 months between Fraser and Ross. And when they were very little, they'd visit a new play park. They'd go somewhere new for the first time for an adventure. And Fraser, who's the oldest, would hide behind Ross. Fraser would never be the first to try anything new. He would encourage Ross, however, to go first, down the biggest slide they could find. Ross, you go, you do it, you do it. And when Ross had safely landed at the bottom of the slide, then it was okay for Fraser to have a go, because his brother had survived the ride. They will all survive. You see, Fraser knew that Ross had a courage that he didn't have. Fraser knew that Ross was there for him. And Ross was really good, because he would go first and he'd get to the bottom and he'd shout, "It's okay, Fraser, you can have a go now, it's okay." And he knew that Fraser was a little bit frightened, and he encouraged Fraser. And it wasn't long before Fraser realised that things aren't too bad after all, and he could go first. And it just reminded me of the story of Deborah and Barak. Barak needed Deborah. He knew Deborah was a woman of God. She had a strong faith. God had told her that they would defeat the army, so he wanted her support. He needed her to go with him, and then he could face the battle with her. I will go, Deborah. However, this means that the honour of conquering the Syrian army will go to a woman. And as I said before, when we read on, we see that it did go to a woman. It was a woman who killed Sisera in the end. You know, we all need a Deborah at different times in our lives. Tim asked Tyrone to help him, and prayer is always a great starting point. Sometimes having a Deborah to help us to see God in situations is just what's needed. Encouraging us with scripture to help us, give us the courage to face the battle, to face the Red Sea, to face that wall, just like Deborah helped Barak. So, my first encouragement this morning is for us all to, when we're finding things a little bit difficult, find somebody to be a Deborah for you. Tyrone was Tim's Deborah. Some people think that Barak was a coward. I've heard messages where people have said that Barak was a coward and hid behind a woman. I don't think it's cowardliness asking for help. Do you?
No.
We bring up our children and teach them to ask for help. And I think it's a sign of strength when we ask for help. We can't do things on our own. And we're family here, are we not?
Yes, we are.
And as Christians across this city, across the Highlands, across Scotland, across the UK and the world, we need to be willing to ask for help when we need it. It's okay to be in recovery or have difficulties. It's okay to ask for help. It is a sign of strength. Don't struggle or hide away. Ask someone to walk with you. So, my second encouragement this morning, remember I told you there's only two, so few, is we can all be a Deborah.
Yes.
We're all at different stages in our journey, and we should all be ready to encourage each other to keep on keeping on, to face the battle, knowing that God is on their side, God is with them, and God is fighting for them. You know, it's great as well when somebody who doesn't know Jesus recognises that you could be their Deborah. They don't know it, but it could be a work colleague, could be somebody at school, could be your neighbour, could be a friend. And they see in you that you could be an encouragement and help to them. There's nothing more exciting that you can support somebody as well who doesn't yet know Jesus. Let's be like Deborah and acknowledge that our strength comes from the Lord. Let's build our faith in God, and let's rely on God for wisdom, so that, like Deborah, our courage and faith can be contagious, and that we can then help others to build their faith, just like Deborah helped Barak. So, our memory verses are good things so that we can then help and remember to encourage others with our memory verses. And they help us too, don't they? So, we're going to have a quick recap. So, the first one was, he reached down, can't hear you, he reached down from on high and took hold of me. He drew me out of deep waters. Psalm 18, verse 16. And the next one, the thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. John 10:10. Well done. Are you ready for this week's? So, encourage each other and build each other up just as you're already doing. And that's 1 Thessalonians 5:11. Encourage one another because you're already doing it. So it's just a message. Keep on doing what you're doing. I want to encourage you this morning. When you need it, find a Deborah. Be a different Deborah for different occasions, different Red Seas, different walls. It might be a different Deborah. But find a Deborah. Don't struggle by yourself. And always be ready to be a Deborah for somebody else. Let's read this one more time. So encourage each other and build each other up, just as you're already doing. 1 Thessalonians 5:11. Amen.